Well, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on where it is that you are watching from. My name is Rhonda Jordan, and I want to welcome you to today's live. I want to say a special welcome to everyone that is joining me live, as well as those of you who are watching the replay. So, if in fact you are in fact on already, go ahead and say hello to me. You can just drop your hello message in the chat. You can also feel free to let me know where it is that you are watching from. And what I'm going to be doing today is sharing a topic that I don't think a lot of people talk about, or should I say, enough people talk about, and why, even if it's not important to you right now, at some point in your content creator career, it is definitely going to become important to you. So, today we're going to be talking about how to take a break in your business without losing momentum. Now, I'm going to be sharing some examples for you. I'm going to talk about why this is important. I'm going to tell you about how to recognize the signs of when it's possibly time for you to take a break. So, once again, if in fact you are already on, welcome to you. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and get right into the topic because this is something that I think a lot of people experience. And for a lot of new creators, content creators, that is, it might take a little bit of time before you start to be able to recognize the symptoms up front. And when I say symptoms, I'm talking about the little things that start to happen that have you thinking, something's a little bit off. So, what I'm going to do now is just jump right into the topic. And if you have any questions, as always, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll get right into it. So, one of the first things that I want to talk about is why taking breaks is really necessary, why it really even matters. And if you see me looking down, I've got a ton of notes, and I don't want to miss anything, so I'm looking at my screen that has all my notes on it. So the first thing that I want to tell you is that as you are building your business as a content creator, someone that creates digital products, even if you're simply doing something like affiliate marketing or any type of an online business, or should I say any type of business, it is not uncommon to experience just burnout or just being mentally exhausted. And a lot of times, I think because we see people who are online and they seem to constantly be on the go. We, as content creators and solopreneurs, feel like we need to do the exact same thing. Well, one of the things you may not realize is that oftentimes people are taking breaks, they just may not be announcing it. And because they have such an awesome content strategy, they might be vacationing. You're looking at their content and thinking that it's all happening live when in fact it just isn't. So I want you to know that it is okay, first of all, to take breaks because burnout is real. And I want to tell you a little bit about a story of someone that I saw go through this process. And I think sometimes too, being a little bit older, there were things that I would have recognized, and you probably would have recognized that this individual was experiencing. And perhaps that would have been enough for us to push back and say it's time to take a break. But there was a woman, a very, very successful young woman online, and she's fortunately back online now. But she had gotten to the point where she was like this content creation machine, and her content was excellent. But let me tell you what she had done was she got to the point where she was creating so much content that it required her to have a team in place. And there's nothing wrong with having a team in place. But it got to the point where I think in her own mind, the expectation level was that she had to constantly be on, constantly be creating, constantly putting out new stuff. And I'm here to tell you that that is a recipe for disaster. We all need breaks. There's just no other way around it. And coming from the corporate world, I worked in corporate America many years ago and for a long time in a career that required me to travel 50% of the time, work long hours. I made a lot of money, but I was extremely stressed out. And I knew and could recognize the signs of when it was time for me to take some days off. And this was before, people started taking mental health days, if you would. I was working in corporate America during the time where people didn't feel that mental health was, in fact, something you needed. Sometimes, you just need a break from people. You need a break from the stress. So back to this story of this young woman, she got to the point where she just was fully burned out to the point where she had to take off time from her business and she just shut everything down. She let her team go. She shut down she had like a membership or something like that. She shut that down. And it was because she was completely burned out. And she ended up taking a year off and she just got back to, who she was. And then started during that year's time off, her sabbatical, she began the process of really thinking about the type of business she wanted to build. And I'm happy to say and excited that she is back and she's okay. Now, what I want you to start thinking about is building time into your schedule, but at the same time recognizing some of the signs of burnout. So when you start to recognize these, when it's time to cut back. I'm also later on in this training going to share with you how you can continue or have your business continue to roll even though you're taking time away. All right. So one of the first things I want you to know is taking time away from your business. It really is an opportunity for you to allow your brain to rest. But at the same time, what you're going to find is that there will be more creativity that will happen. You'll think of more content ideas, but that may come, let's say you're taking a week off. That might come 2, 3, 4, 5 days into your time off. And that's okay. I want you to know that over here around these parts of the internet, I fully believe in building a business that revolves around your life, not that your business has to be your entire life. See, I think, being over 60 years of age, I think that we get to a point where we've decided what type of life we want to live and what's important to us. And being on 24/7 is not my idea of a good time. I feel like when people do that, that is definitely also a recipe for disaster. You need to build breaks into your schedule. You just have to know how to do it so everything can keep going. Now, I want to give you a couple of things that are going to allow you to really start to recognize when it is time for you to take a break, okay? Because I'm going to tell you, content creation and all the things that need to take place in order to build an online business, it can be mentally taxing. So you need to know and start recognizing these. So if you're taking notes, by all means, definitely jot these down or bookmark this particular training so you can come back to it at a point when you're really going to need it. So one of the first things to do is to think about or to recognize some of the signs is just a lack of motivation. What I mean by that is you know what to do, you know what you want to do, you know what your audience needs, you know all those things, but you just do not have the motivation to do it. It's kind of like if you had to, walk to your computer or however it is that you create content and you sit down, open up something and start creating, you just don't have the mental capacity to do it. You just don't want to do it. And so when you start to recognize or have that lack of motivation, that might be a sign that it's time for you to take a break. Okay. A second thing is just fatigue. Sometimes, we are going and going and going, and, we don't allow ourselves to rest. It's almost like we have to wait for someone to give us permission to rest, or heaven forbid, your body just shuts down because you have been on the go so much. And what I mean by shuts down is you get sick, you just, you're fatigued, you're all those things. So I want you to be able to recognize that before you get to the point. But again, if you're experiencing that, it's time to shut down. And you don't need anyone's permission to shut down. This is your business. And I want you to remember that. The second thing is You get irritable when you have to think about doing, business tasks, or if your audience is, let's say, for example, they're asking you questions that you need to respond to, or they're emailing you, or whatever, or they're commenting, and you just don't have the energy to respond back to their comments, or you don't have the energy to, get into your inbox and tackle it, even though your audience is asking you questions. Another thing is, you just get this creative block. There's a time when, the ideas are just flowing. And then there's times when you're like, I just can't come up with anything. I can't think of anything. That's a creative block. And to me, that is a time, and definitely a time for you to step away, because you've got to allow your brain, again, to just relax, rejuvenate, and you'll be amazed at the ideas that will start to come through. So, hi, Ashiomi, how are you today? I'm going to pop that comment up. Yes, this is one topic that, as I said, I don't think enough people talk about, and I want to make it a regular part of the conversation, because I want people to feel like it is okay to rest. It's okay to take time off, because the benefits far outweigh, everything else if you do allow yourself to rest. All right, so we were talking about just creative blocks, and then just resentment toward content creation. That's kind of like when you're like, oh no, I can't do it today. Well, when you recognize any of these, the lack of motivation, the fatigue, the irritability with your audience or business tasks or creative blocks, it's time to take a break. And sometimes taking a break can be as little as taking a walk. Sometimes it can be taking the afternoon off. Sometimes it can be saying, you know what, I'm shutting down for a week, and nothing is going to happen. I'm not going to worry about creating content. I'm not going to worry about, posting anything. It is okay to do that. And another thing that I want to share with you is, if in fact you are building a business that, again, is all about people being able to enjoy their life and not work 24/7, your audience needs to see you shut down at times. They need to see that you're taking a break. They need you to tell them, you know what, I'm taking some time off, and all I'm going to do is spend some time with my family, or I'm going to be taking a vacation, or I'm just taking the afternoon off and enjoying it. So they need to see it, because what that's going to do for them is to allow them to see it is okay to do the exact same thing. Because some of us come from that environment in corporate, or working a job where it's almost frowned upon if you need some time away, because you're exhausted, mentally exhausted, And so I again cannot impress upon you the importance of being able to recognize these things, so you know what to do when these things happen. All right, now let's talk about planning for your breaks. Now, there are a couple of ways, and I kind of alluded to them as we were going through this. So, you have the opportunity to either tell your audience you're going to take a break, or there's a sneaky little way that you can take a break and you don't even have to tell your audience about it. So it just really depends on, what type of break, how long the break is going to be, and so forth. And again, I also want you to know these things and be prepared for them, so that you don't ever reach the point of burnout where you have to take a year off, like the young lady I was telling you about in the beginning of this. So let's talk about if you're going to plan a break. All right. So, for example, some of you may have kids at home, or perhaps you normally take a family vacation in the summer, or whenever it happens to be. But your business is flowing, and you almost feel like, oh, I don't know if I should take a break. Yes, you should. Because your family, your friends, your mental health, all of that is important. And there's nothing wrong with taking a break. So if you're going to plan for it, here's what I would suggest you do. You can decide if this is a break, if it's going to be a longer one, then you probably should tell your audience about it. You can just let them know. You can do an email message. If in fact you have an audience where you have started an email list, that is a great way to let them know. Just tell them Hey, listen, I am one of those people that loves to spend time with my family. You all have heard me talk about that, if in fact that's your story. And we're going to be taking some time away. And so you may not see me as much, producing content or putting things out there, but just know I'm okay. I'm just enjoying life. I'm just spending time. And I encourage you to do those things as well. So, one, you're walking the walk because you're telling them I'm taking some time away. Secondly, you're telling them they should be doing that as well. Okay. All right. Now, if you're going to take some time away, so let's say, for example, I can tell you some time that I'm going to be taking away, which is generally the last couple of weeks of the year. Typically, that time between about the 15th or so of December and the end of the year. Now, that was always, and it pretty much is always kind of my favorite time of the year to do that, simply because, a lot of people are taking time away from that. But at the same time, that to me has always been that point where people don't even know what day it is because, the days just kind of all run together. I'm one of those people, I love watching Christmas movies. I love spending time with my family. The extended family is sometimes in town. So I don't want to be tied up creating content. I don't want to be, yeah, I just don't want to do it. And that's my time to allow myself to just shut down. I have another friend who is a content creator. And for her, she always takes 2 weeks off in July. That's just her thing. And she doesn't have small kids at home or anything, but that's just her time to do it. So I'm just letting you know that, planning it out and, whatever the reason is that you're taking time, that is fine. Now, another thing is if in fact you are going to be offline for a period of time, meaning you're not going to be posting content in that, it's probably a good idea to let your audience know because some of them are going to worry about you. Some of them are going to be asking, are you okay? You'll get messages because trust me, as your audience gets to know you and they start expecting that certain things are going to be posted. So let me give you an example. Now that I've begun doing lives on Wednesday, if I were to suddenly take 2 weeks away and nothing was posted, nothing was said about the live, or you logged on at noon Eastern time on Wednesday and I wasn't here, you'd probably wonder where I was. And that same thing is going to happen to you. As your audience begins to expect certain things and you suddenly just shut down, they're going to wonder. So, again, if it's an extended period of time, it's probably a good idea to let them know that you're taking this time away. And then, just communicate with, family, friends, as well as your audience that, no business is happening. If you have a virtual assistant or something like that, let them know, hey, we're all taking time off during this period of time. Now, I might need you for X, Y, and Z, but just let them know. And so, again, this way we eliminate the emails or messages that are going to come into our inbox about where are you, that type of thing. And then the other thing I suggest you do is to set some clear goals about business goals, if you will, regarding all of this. So, for example, if you're the type of person that'll say, I'm going to take some time away, and then you find yourself sneaking into your inbox or you're on Canva trying to create content because an idea popped into your head. Now, we're going to shut down. All right. We have to allow ourselves to shut down because if you say you're shutting down and then you continue to work, that kind of defeats the purpose. So, one of the things I'm going to suggest to you, and I'll cover this in another topic because to me, this is an entire topic that needs to be covered, is having what I like to refer to as an idea book. Now, your idea book can be, a physical journal. It can be a piece of paper, just, whatever it is. You can do it with a Word document or a Google Doc, however you take notes, even the Notes app on your phone. But the point is, this becomes a place for you to simply jot down ideas as they come to you. I don't want you sneaking into your idea book when you're on vacation. Okay, now, if in fact it's just a really, really good idea and you got to get it down, then do it. Now, the purpose, just so I explain to you what that idea book is, it's just a place for you to get those ideas out of your head and down on paper so you don't forget about them. Now, for example, with my idea book, what happens with it is anything that pops into my head that I think might be a good idea, I write it down, but I don't act on every single thing because if I'm already focused on one thing, there's no point in starting something else because nothing will ever get done like that. The idea book is a place for you when you're looking for an additional source of income, when you're looking to bring to life a new product or whatever. You can go into that idea book, grab the information and decide what you're going to act on. Another thing that's going to happen is something that you might think is a great idea today is not going to be a great idea 3 months ago. You'll be thinking to yourself, what was I thinking when I came up with that? All right, so now back to vacation. So we're not sneaking into the idea book. Now, as I said, you do have permission to do it if it's just a really good idea and you can write it down in 5 minutes, but then I want you to put it away because the focus, again, is just rejuvenation. When we're taking time away, we are not going to be, working. We're not going to start doing that. All right, so now, here's another thing. If in fact you are going to take some time away and you want to keep the momentum going, one of the best ways to do this is to think about the type of content that's going to allow you to take time away. And some of you have heard me talk about it. I think it's a great time for a reminder, but it is evergreen content that's going to constantly allow people to be pulled into your world because you are answering questions that they want. You're providing training on things they need to learn. That's the kind of thing you can almost think of it as searchable content as well. Things that people are going to Google or to the YouTube search bar and they're typing in trying to find the answer to that. Now, how does all of this work together with you taking a break? Well, if you have a content bank that is filled with evergreen content, that is going to work for you even when you're not working. So I really want you to start thinking about how you can build a content bank. And then in advance of you going on vacation, if you want to create some posts that you are going to schedule, you can reach into that content bank, grab the content, if it's a video link, if it is a tutorial that you've done, if it's a lead magnet, whatever it happens to be, and you can schedule those posts so that they are going to actually go out while you're taking your vacation. Okay. Because again, if you're on vacation, but you have lots of evergreen content, there's always something that people can refer to. So I really want you to think in terms of what pieces of content in my niche would be something that people would want to learn about pretty much at any time. Okay, so if in fact you have any questions or about any of this, feel free to drop them in and I'll answer those as we go along. And I apologize, last week I didn't even realize there were some questions that had come through and I just completely missed them. And unfortunately, and I might have to check my settings, but unfortunately, if people comment and then I come back to it after the video live stream has ended, I can't necessarily see those. So I think I might need to make some changes. So I will make sure to look at my comments as I am on with you today. All right. So again, going back to this evergreen content, think about what you can create. What is it that your audience can always benefit from? Because keep in mind, there are always going to be new people coming into your world, new people that are coming into your audience. So, any of the content that you have that you think might be something that they would find interesting, that's the kind of content you're going to reach for and reschedule. Okay. And what I mean by reschedule is let's say you have talked about it in the past. Maybe you've done a post on it. Maybe it's been on your YouTube community page or wherever, bring it back to life. You all know that I'm a big believer in reusing and repurposing content because if you're doing both of those, taking time away from your business is simple to do. Okay, I want to share one more story with you because I hope this will help you understand how this can really benefit you. As I've mentioned to some of my audience prior, my husband had two major surgeries. Was away from my business really for 4 months. And when I say 4 months, I mean I was not producing any new videos at all. However, I almost had a straight line growth curve in the number of subscribers, the number of views, and I was able to get monetized. And it was all because I had prepared for that. I had prepared by having content that was evergreen. I also had a variety of posts that I had used in the beginning of the year that appeared on my community page for YouTube. I just repurposed those. I scheduled them out. And so that's where I want you to understand it is very possible to be completely away from your business, but for your business to continue growing because of the type of content that you've created. Okay. All right. Now let's talk about some of the types of content that evergreen content is specifically that can help you do this. One of the first ones is tutorials. Now, for me, many of you may have found me through tutorials. Now, the type of tutorials that I like to do because of the audience that I have, are things where I'm actually demonstrating either a business tool or how to do something. And so I'm sharing my screen, and people, it's almost like you're looking over my shoulder to see exactly what it is that I'm doing. Those types of content, pieces of content, are extremely helpful. So think about what you might be able to do. Let's say that you're into crocheting. Well, one of the things you could do is create a series of tutorials on certain stitches or patterns or whatever it is that you do. Think about the things you do. If in fact you're in the online world where you too also do business or use business tools and they would be beneficial to your audience, what business tools could you demonstrate? Okay. And really, all you have to do is to be able to share your screen. Now, I personally am a Mac user, so I use something called ScreenFlow. I've been using ScreenFlow for probably close to 10 years now. But that may not be your experience. You can also use something like Camtasia. Camtasia, I believe, can be used on a PC as well as a Mac. You can also use Loom. So Loom will allow you to demonstrate by showing your screen as well. So there are a lot of different ways that you can create tutorial style videos. Now, again, if it's something else, let's say you're into cooking, and you can demonstrate how to make something. I'm going to give you an example of something that definitely works. One of my sister-in-laws also has a very successful YouTube channel, way more successful than mine, nearly 100,000 subscribers. She has a recipe where she walks people through how to make macaroni and cheese. Every year, that video around Thanksgiving and Christmas, it just blows up in terms of actual views. All she's doing is demonstrating it. So think about demonstrating how to make the mac and cheese dish. So again, think about what kinds of things can you demonstrate that people are going to find useful. Now, another thing would be a how-to type video. Now, that can be very similar to a tutorial, but just think about the things that people want to know. So, for example, one thing that always comes to mind is there is a video on YouTube about how to hammer a nail or how to make a hole or something like that. And it is crazy how many views this thing gets. It's evergreen content. I think the video was made almost 10 years ago, but it's continuing to get views. So, again, what types of how to type videos could you make? What is it that your audience wants to know how to do? All right. Another thing would be a resource roundup. So, if you have a series of things that you could share to people or share for people. So, for example, one of the things that my audience will ask me about on a regular basis is video equipment. Now, one of the things that I have done is on my Amazon storefront, I've just created a series of, they're like collages and lists where people can go and they can find the equipment that I use. So it's a roundup. So if in fact I'm demonstrating or I have a video where I'm talking about, you want to get started and you want to record X, Y, and Z, be, I could very easily refer them to the equipment that I'm actually using because that's something that people are very interested in. And then what beginner focused content can you create? Okay. I'm talking, sometimes we think the things that are, like, why would anybody want to know that? You would be surprised at how many people are searching for that. So, what type of content that when you were first starting whatever it is that you currently are teaching, what did you want to know? What were you searching for? And sometimes, as I mentioned, you'll think there's no way that someone's going to find that interesting. Well, they absolutely will find it interesting because they're a few steps behind you. So they're trying to figure out how to do what you already know how to do without even thinking about it. So don't overlook the simple stuff. Don't overlook the things that you think no one else wants to know because everybody already knows that. No, they don't know it. That's why they're going to Google or YouTube and typing it into the search engine. How do I do X, Y, and Z? How do I, make a hole? How do I use a drill? How do I change a light bulb? I mean, I don't know what people might want to know, but think about your niche and what people might be interested in learning. All right. And again, you can link to that. So if you're on vacation, sitting by the beach and enjoying the breeze and that, but someone is now watching your tutorial video. Someone is now using your how-to content. Someone is now using your information that you've created to learn how to begin doing whatever. Okay. So it gives you time away and allows you to have that break with your content continuing to work for you. See, this is the way I want you to think about your content, the content that you're creating. I want you to think of it as an unpaid team member, a team member you don't have to pay that is willing to work 24/7, 365 days per year, and you don't have to pay them. Okay. That is really the way to think about really good content. So, whenever you're creating content, you want to always think about what types of evergreen pieces can you actually create. Evergreen content needs to be a part of your strategy. See, it's the people that I find that don't really have any type of content that's evergreen, where they have to every single day create pieces of content. That's just not my idea of fun. So that's a lot of work. And so that's one of the reasons why I really stress to people you have to incorporate evergreen content into your business if you ever want to be able to take breaks. See, if you have lots of evergreen content, that's when you can take those 2 weeks off, between the December 15th and December 31st or however many days that is, and there's stuff that's going to continue to work for you. All right? Any questions on any of that? And let me know if this information is actually helping you as you go through it. And I always say, if you have a business bestie, by all means, make sure that they either start joining us on Wednesdays for the live stream, or make sure you share this information with them. All right, now let's also talk about repurposing, and let's talk about reusing your content. Now, one thing that you may not realize is that when you are creating content, a very small percentage of your audience, creating it and posting it, a very small percentage of your audience is going to see it. And when I say a small percentage, I'm talking 3 to 4%. So let's say you have 100 people in your audience. On average, only about 3 to 4% of them are actually even seeing your content. And it's all because of the way the algorithms serve content up to us. So if you're posting on, let's say, for example, Facebook or Instagram or even, TikTok or any of those, think of how many people are not seeing your content versus seeing it, which is why you should be very comfortable reusing it. And I'm talking, sometimes I will reuse the exact same piece of content. Now, there are other times where I will reuse a piece of content and I'll change the color of it. I will slightly change the wording. I mean, that's like when I feel like really working, I'll do that. But most of the time, I just simply go back. I count back 3 months and I'm like, okay, time to reshare this piece. And I reshare it. And you'd be amazed at how many people will respond to it because they've never seen it before. So I really want you to think in terms of that. Now, if we're talking about repurposing it, let's say, for example, you have a piece of content that you shared in one way, but you can pull something else out of it and reuse it. So if it is something where you could, for example, turn it into tips, we'll turn it into tips. And instead of it being, a written post that you have, bullet point it and make it tip number one and simply say, come back tomorrow because I'm going to be sharing the second tip that's going to help you do X, Y, and Z. Now, what that's doing is it's allowing you to reuse that content. It's allowing you to repurpose it because that's really what we're doing. But you're also setting people up and giving them a reason to come back and look for the other pieces that are part of that series that you're creating. All right. Now, another thing you can do is, for example, if you're doing YouTube, and we talked about this software before. You could use something like Opus Clips, and what Opus Clips will do is take a long form video, and it will just chop it up into smaller pieces that you could share as short videos that you could then post to TikTok, or you could post to Instagram, or you could post as YouTube Shorts. So that is another way that you can again repurpose this content. And I'm almost smiling because I'm hoping that most of you are starting to get ideas now, and you realize that taking breaks away from your business does not mean that your business has to stop, because your content's going to continue working for you. Okay. All right. Now, another thing that you could do, and I do this a lot as well, is I will reshare one of my community posts. Now, think of my community post as similar to, for example, your Facebook feed or your YouTube feed, if you will. So I typically don't do a lot of posting. Rarely do I post on Facebook or Instagram. That's just not who I am. That's not my preferred platform. My preferred platform is, in fact, YouTube. So I focus all my energy on that. Now, I'll take a community post that I have posted and I'll just reword it. I'll rework it. And the reason why this can work for you is because you might have a different perspective on things 3 or 6 or 9 months down the road. And maybe there's something else that you can now add into it that will allow you to share it in a different way. So let me give you an example of something. Let's say that you posted something a year and a half ago, or a year ago, or 6 months ago, but now you have started using AI. And you've learned some things that you can do with AI. Well, there might be a way that you were previously teaching someone how to do something that required them to use different effort, or to, for example, do it in a way that would take them much longer. But now, because you've started using AI and it's working for you, you can teach that concept in a different way and with a different strategy. Rewrite the post. That's all you have to do. Use the basics of it, but then rewrite it and then schedule that stuff out. So, again, if you're going to be taking off those 2 weeks, now you've got that content scheduled and it's going to work for you. Okay. Another thing that you can do is, really just, like I said, change up the colors of something. Or, for example, if you have a quote post and the picture, because typically when I do my quote post, I'll have a picture in the background and then just a square, which has my brand color, and then the quote is written in white or something like that. Well, just change up the background color of the picture, or change the color of your brand color. Maybe you have more than one brand color. Change that up and repost it. It will look like completely different content to the average person. And here's the other thing: for people who might have actually seen that piece of content in the past, sometimes people need a reminder. And when it comes back up again on your feed, now they're like, oh, yeah, I do remember that. And you know what? That's great advice. Or I do remember that strategy, but I never actually acted on it. So maybe it's time for me to go ahead and do that. So just understand there are lots of different ways to prepare to go on vacation or to take a longer break by reusing, repurposing content that you already have. All right, so are there any questions or comments as we're going through? I'm gonna take a drink of water here. Sorry about that. When you talk consistently like that for a period of several minutes, your mouth gets dry. So all right. So, as I said, feel free to drop in any comments or questions that you have. And also let me know if any of this information is actually helping you and hopefully empowering you to be able to take breaks and vacations as you need to. Because my goal, again, is to help you avoid burnout so that you can, this is a long game. I want you to be able to schedule those breaks in, take them when you need to, and then come back rejuvenated and ready to go. Because that's what always happens. Whenever I take a break, and I bet this is going to be true for you as well, whenever you take a break from your business and you truly allow your brain to just relax, enjoy, do other things, read books that you enjoy that are not business related. I always have to remind myself when I'm on vacation, we don't do business books. I read enough business books or listen to enough of them in a normal way. So I need to allow my brain to just completely shut down. But then when you come back, it's like you come back ready to go. I mean, I'm talking the ideas are flowing, and you can go to that idea book and flip through it, and you will think of ways to implement some of the ideas that you have in that book. You will, be able to create content very easily because your brain is rested and you've rejuvenated yourself, and now you truly are ready to go. And I've seen that happen so many times. For me personally, I've seen it happen so many times for other content creators I know. And I think it will happen for you as well, because it's something that there's a lot to be said about just allowing your brain to rest and allowing yourself to do fun things, things that have nothing to do with business. All right, now let's talk about, we talked about repurposing, we talked about all those things. Now, what I want to do is I want to talk about how you can actually use scheduling tools that will allow you to get this content scheduled so that you don't even have to think about it when you're away. It will just automatically post. So, for example, let's start with YouTube, since that is, in fact, my platform of choice. YouTube, on the community post page, actually has a scheduling feature. Let me just see here. I'm going to bring this up because, and the reason I want to show you this is going to be true. Facebook has a very similar type thing as well. So let me try to go full screen here. Give me 1 second so I can show you how this works. Hold on for me just 1 second. As I bring this in, I'm just going to grab a community post that I have here so you can see how this works, because hopefully this will help you start, to think about how you can schedule content and really have it ready to go. All right, so I apologize. I should have had this ready, but I just thought of this on the fly as I was going through this, so you can see it. And so while I'm waiting for this, if you have anything, drop it in, and I'll get to that in just a second. Let's see here. Here we go. Here's my YouTube community post. All right. So what I'm going to do now is show you how this actually works. Okay, so let's go. I'm going to go full screen here. Okay, so this is my YouTube community page. And so here, let's say I wanted to post an image. So all that I would have to do, I'm going to post it and show you how to schedule it. So all I would have to do is click on this. And then what I'm going to do is grab one of the community posts that I already have. And let's say, for example, that I wanted to post this. So then all I would do is click on this little button here. Make sure you can see this okay, where it says schedule post. Okay, let me see if I can make this a little bit larger. Okay, so hopefully it's a little larger, and it says schedule post down here. So all you would do is click this drop down arrow, and once you click the drop down arrow and schedule post, you're going to see down here it's going to give you a time. Date and time that you can schedule. So I could very easily say, okay, I'm going to be on vacation this entire week of August. I want this to post on August 5th. And then what I want it to do is to post at 7:30 a.m. And then all I have to do from there is hit schedule. And so once I do that, now I can see all of my scheduled posts right here. Okay, so you can see that this one would be ready to post on August 5th. So if you are thinking about how you can start to prepare for this, that's exactly how you would do it, because each of these posts or each of these different platforms will have a very similar type of setup where you can post things. I know you can do it with YouTube. I'm sorry, with Instagram, and I know you can do it with Facebook as well. I'm not all that familiar with TikTok, so I don't know whether or not TikTok has something similar to that. But what I want you to do is to think about how you can use all of this to your advantage. So, any of the types of posts that you can create, for example, image posts, a community post that's all text based, all of that can be scheduled. Same thing with Facebook and Instagram. So think about that as well. All right. Now, and I got ahead of myself because I also have a list showing you that Facebook and Instagram can do that. Now, email messages. I schedule all of my email messages as well. So if you are in fact sending out a weekly email message, that's very easy to do. Your email service providers are also going to allow you to schedule that. So my email messages are all scheduled to go out on Tuesday mornings at 6:05 a.m. I just type it out, I hit schedule, and then I select the time and the day that I want it to go out. And then it automatically publishes that. So you can do the same thing with your email messages. So again, these are ways that you can allow yourself to take a break, but have your content continue to work for you. All right. Any questions on any of those scheduling tools as we've gone through those? All right. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is address something that for some of you, you might be wondering if you should do this, which is should you tell your audience? Well, if it's going to be a shorter break, it may not even be necessary to do it. If it's going to be something where you're only going to be away for, 3 days or 4 days and you can schedule content to do it, then I don't even think you really need to do it. If in fact there is a period of time where you're going to need to be away for an extended period of time, I think you should tell your audience. Now, you might be saying, but you didn't do a lot of that. Well, one of the reasons why I didn't do a lot of telling that was I had content that was posting. And even though my husband was, recovering and recuperating, I was still responding to comments that I would get. But I wasn't creating new content. I was repurposing and allowing content that I already had in place to do it. But remember, I was away for 4 months. So, I just made sure that in the background, I was continuing to work. Now, when I say away, I didn't mean completely offline. Now, if you're going to be completely offline, as I mentioned earlier, where if people are accustomed to you showing up, and then suddenly, your email messages are no longer going out or whatever, I think you should just let people know. I think you should let your audience know, but you decide what works for you. As I said, if you're just taking an afternoon off, then you don't need to do any, obviously you don't need to do that because you're only away for a few hours and then you're back. So just kind of think about based upon what you're going to be able to do. So let me give you an example of where you might not be able to respond to people. Let's say you have to be away because you're ill, and there's no way you're going to be able to respond to email messages. There's no way you're going to be able to respond to comments. Let your audience know that. Just let them know so that they won't think something's wrong with you or that you've completely abandoned your business. And I think you'll be surprised at the support you're going to get from your audience. To this day, I still have people asking me, "How's your husband doing?" Well, fortunately, I can say he's doing awesome. He's doing really well, and all the other stuff is beyond. We're past all of that. So you'll be amazed at how people will, in fact, be a part of your journey and how they'll want to know how you're doing. So, building your audience and keeping them informed and share only what you're comfortable sharing. You do not have to share everything. You can share what you're comfortable with. And sometimes, I think, I'm trying to remember how this was phrased, but it was phrased that sometimes you have to share things from a point of the scar, not from the scab, meaning that it might take you some time before you're comfortable sharing things with people. And then there might be times where you're just absolutely never going to share with it. Again, this is your world, it's your business. You get to decide what you are going to share and what you aren't going to share. So decide what you want to tell them and when you want to tell them. All right. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to kind of give you kind of a plan that you could use if in fact you're going to be away. And this is what I call my guilt-free break, where you can take the time. And I've gone through some of the pieces as we've done this, but I just want to kind of give you an idea. So let's say, for example, you're going to take a week off. You could very easily have 2 to 3 evergreen pieces of content that are scheduled and ready to go. Okay, think about what those are going to be based upon some of the discussions that we've had. Now, another thing I want to share with you is in this video description link, I did a live training it might have been over a month ago. It's probably a little longer than that, where I specifically talked about what evergreen content is, how to create it, that type of thing. So I want you to grab that link, watch that live, and I think that will help you really understand evergreen content, how you can actually create it and use it to your advantage. The second thing I would tell you to do is have 1 to 3 pieces of repurposed content. Now, if you don't want to really work hard, just go back 3 or 4 months, find something you posted and schedule it. Because again, people are probably not going to remember it anyway. And even if they do, it's a great reminder for it. Now, the other thing I would tell you is if you're going to take some time away as well, and you want that email message to go out so you're still connecting with your audience, write 2 to 3 of them, depending on how long you're going to be away. Let's say, I typically only email once a week with my audience. So if you're going to be away for 2 weeks, then write 2 email messages and get them scheduled with your autoresponder that's built into your email service provider, and have it go out at the same time and date that you normally would connect with your audience. And then the other thing is you can also create content that is going to direct people to one of your revenue sources, all right? Because we want to keep the money flowing as things are happening. So one of the things you could do is you could direct them to your affiliate links. So there could be a piece of content that directs them right into an affiliate link. Another thing that you could do is any specific products that you have, you can refer to those, but remember you have to balance it out. 80% value, 20% direct promotion of, your personal products. So that could be another thing that, you in fact would have in place. So that way you have, content going out, your email messages going out, you have content that's showing up on your primary platform, and that is the post that we talked about. You could even throw some quotes in there, 1 or 2 quotes, maybe one per week or something. So there's plenty of ways that you could still have content ready to go, and you're sitting on the beach, enjoying the breeze or skiing, whatever mountain it is that's your favorite mountain, or however it is that you like to vacation. And you can come back to a business that's continuing to grow, to content that's been working for you. You can come back to, having still had that connection via email with your audience. And you can also, come back with all those fresh ideas that you thought about and generated as you were on vacation. I'm telling you, vacations and being away are a great way to rejuvenate yourself and get the juices flowing to create even better content. So, any questions? I hope I have definitely encouraged you that it is okay to take a break, because I think there are just too many people who I always call it the bro marketing squad. That's the group of guys that are, in their 20s that want to drive the Lamborghinis. And, trust me, there's nothing wrong with that. If that's your thing, do it. But I don't want to ever send a message to you that says you cannot take time away. That is not the type of business I'm building. And I hope that's not the type of business that you're going to build. I am a firm believer in work hard, but play harder. Because we all, especially since most of my audience is 45 years and older, we've all already had those years of, working almost nonstop or pushing through. And, some of us are ready to just take some time to smell the roses, but we don't want the income stream to stop. We want the money to continue to flow. We just want the business to have to revolve around our lifestyle versus us only being able to take breaks because the business is slower at this time. No, I want you to be able to take a break whenever you want to take a break. And you don't need anyone's permission to do that if you set your business up. That's why it's important for you to have a strategy in place. That's why it's important for you to have systems in place. Systems being things like your email marketing provider, and scheduling things out, and all of those types of things that will allow you to take a break. And see, if you do things right and you set these things up in the beginning by the type of content you create, and you learn how to use scheduling tools and so forth, you'll be able to take a break whenever you want to or whenever you need to. Because sometimes, we're forced to take a break. Things happen in our lives and we have to step away, but that doesn't mean our businesses have to completely shut down. All right. So, we've gone through a lot of different topics today, and there's a couple of things that I do want to share with you. I'm going to share this in just a second here. So, let me move this over here, because one of the things I want to share with you are a couple of books that, for those of you that have been around for a while, I'm all into books. And so I'm going to share this with you because I want you to see a couple of books that I definitely would recommend that you read, because it kind of will reinforce some of these topics. And so, one of the first books that I want you to look at is something called A Company of One. And with A Company of One, this book here, this is all about staying small, meaning that you have a business where you're a solopreneur. You may not have any employees, or maybe you just have a virtual assistant and maybe one other person. But what you're doing is you're setting up a business that is going to, where you say to yourself, okay, I need, $150,000 a year to do everything that I want to do. Meaning that's the income my business needs to generate. I don't know what your number is. It might be higher, it might be lower, whatever it is. But once you make that, then you're good. You're good with it. You're not trying to build a multi-million dollar business that you are ultimately going to sell. Okay, being a true entrepreneur. We're over here in this corner of the internet. We're talking more about being a solopreneur. This is a great book to help you kind of work through that and really understand what being a solopreneur is all about. And what's really interesting is the number of people who are now solopreneurs. This is their thing. I want to be a solopreneur. My husband and I, we have another business that requires more work, and not a whole lot, but it definitely requires more work. And so my goal is to focus on this one so we can shut that one down, because I don't want to work that hard anymore. And I don't want to send the message that I'm not a person that is, has a good work ethic. I have an incredible work ethic, and sometimes I have to make myself shut down. But I just want you to know that being a solopreneur and staying small, it's great. if that's the type of business that you want. All right. Now, the next thing that I want to share with you is a book, and I actually have read this one. I had the first one, both book and audio format, because some of you have heard me say I will not only read, but I'll also listen so that I can go through the concepts on a regular basis. But this one is a revised edition called Building a Story Brand. Now, why am I sharing this with you? Because this is going to help you clarify your message to your customers. Because if you can clarify your message and make sure that the message that you're putting out there is extremely clear, you are going to attract the audience that you ultimately want to attract. So I have all of these books in my Amazon storefront, and I've linked that in the description. So if you're interested in either of those books and some of the others that I've recommended, by all means, click that link and, in fact, use it. I do have to tell you that is an affiliate link. So if, in fact, you were to purchase anything through my storefront, I do, in fact, earn a small commission on that. So I always like to make sure I cover myself with that. All right. So, with that, one of the other things that I want to discuss with you, I always like to finish up with a little bit of mindset training. And today, I really just want to talk about, giving yourself grace and allowing yourself time to become the entrepreneur that you are destined to become. And when I say entrepreneur, I'm really talking more about being a solopreneur, meaning that you're staying small but growing a massive business. And I don't want you to discount what a solopreneur can make. I know solopreneurs making $3 and $4 million a year. So don't think that you have to decide that you're going to grow this big, massive entity that and that's the only way you can make the type of income you want. You don't have to. I want you to give yourself grace and allow yourself to learn the things you need to learn. I want you to allow yourself time to do it. I want you to allow yourself to make mistakes and not look at them as being a failure. You are going to fail as a solopreneur. If you're going down this path, I can assure you, trust me, I fail on a regular basis, on a daily basis. And honestly, that is my goal, because failure and how you look at it is really going to determine how successful you're going to be. Now, you might think, well, that's kind of contradictory. Let me explain to you what I mean. You have to look at failure as simply something didn't work, so I need to try something different. It doesn't mean you are a failure. It simply means what you did didn't work. I always go back to this one because I think most of you can relate to it. And unfortunately, some of you might have been subjected to it, which was my very first live stream on April 30th. It was a hot mess, and I'm going to continue to tell this story. Now, I had two choices to make afterwards. After that happened, I could have just thrown in the towel and said, you know what, this live streaming stuff, it is just not for me. I can't figure it out. Or the other option was to go back to the drawing board, figure out what I did wrong, change some things, and then do it again and not expect perfection when I did it again. Because whenever you do it again, only expect yourself or only require yourself, maybe that's a better way to say it, to get about 1% better. And, each time just work on getting just 1% better, because now that's giving yourself grace. If you're saying all I have to do is get 1% better, that's easy to do, because for me, that was something like, all right, I need to fix the Wi-Fi versus, using an Ethernet. Okay, well then I can figure that out. If you are allowing yourself grace, your business is going to continue to grow because you're not expecting, perfection. Perfection doesn't exist, and we all know that, but a lot of times we still expect that of ourselves. Another thing I want to share with you when I talk about giving yourself grace is listen to how you're talking to yourself. Whether you realize this or not, the person that talks to you most is you. And some of the things you're saying to yourself are just downright mean. You would never say it to anybody else. So stop saying it to yourself. That's where we have to talk about, again, giving ourselves grace. think in terms of when something doesn't work, how can I do it better? What could I have done different? How can I learn this? How can I, figure this out? I don't have the equipment that I need. Well, how can I make this happen? Um, I don't know how to use X, Y, and Z. Well, how can I learn that? See, that's what you have to allow yourself to do. Just give yourself some grace. So that's my TED Talk. I want to thank you for coming to my TED Talk today. But I think it's important because I'm telling you, I can't tell you how many people reach out to me and they're so hard on themselves. And they think that other people who are entrepreneurs or solopreneurs just, have it all figured out. No, they don't. Every single day, anyone that is successful as a solopreneur or even an entrepreneur, they fail. But the difference is they don't allow failure to stop them. There's another book I'll throw out there that I recommend. It's a book called Failing Forward by John Maxwell. Read that book because you have to change how you view failure. If you view failure as just something that didn't work and you have to do something different, you'll keep going. If you view failure as you're a failure, you're going to have a problem. Okay? So don't allow yourself to get into that habit. Give yourself grace and know that everything that you need to learn to be in this online space, you can learn. As we always say, everything's figure outable. You can figure it out. You're just going to have to allow yourself time to do it. All right. So with that being said, if you've learned anything today, drop some thumbs up or some gems or something so I know that this type of information is helping you. Allow yourself time to take those breaks. Use the content strategies that we've talked about to, make those breaks a little smoother. Allow yourself to just completely shut down when it's needed. And, you'll be just fine. So, with that being said, we're back here next week, Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'm going to be sharing some things that I think are going to be really beneficial in terms of helping you set up for a very successful fourth quarter. And yes, I'm already talking fourth quarter because it's time to do that. Believe it or not, it is time for us to start thinking in terms of that. So, thanks for those of you that watch live. And I also want to say thank you to everybody who is watching the replay. If you've enjoyed any of this, like I said, share it with your business besties. Make sure that you bookmark it so you can come back and rewatch it because there will be a time where you're going to question whether or not it's okay for you to take some time off or whether you should take some time off. And I want you to be able to refer to the content in this video to help you make that decision. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.